Hello, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be watching us. We are back again on Think Point Podcast. With me today is a brother, a comrade, somebody that I've been together for quite a long time. It is a pleasure having you here with us. We have tried to schedule this interview a couple of times, but we couldn't get it done due to certain issues and tight schedule down there. Without much ado, we will just allow our guest to introduce himself to our viewers. Comrade, you are welcome to Think Point Podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Ali, comrade. I am good. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we have been scheduling this for months now. Yeah, but it's a
Exactly.
pleasure. And then good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to the viewers out there. My name is Omar Saibo Kawara. I am a human rights activist, and but also a fact checker. I am the executive director of InfoCheck, and also I am a transnational governance specialist. It's a pleasure to be in this platform, and I look forward to a truthful discussion. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you so much, comrade. It is pleasure to have you again. Having the discussion with you. We do have a lot of discussion behind the scene, but this is the first of its kind. To appear on our platform to have a discussion with the Gambian, and we will be doing the discussion in Mandinka and of course in other languages as well, so that we can be able to transcend the message to the larger population. Um, Comrade, I just want you to take us through about the work you do in the Gambia recently. You've made mention of some of the things that you involved in, but take us through some of the activities that you've involved in so far.
All right, thank you very much. So I am involved in a lot of um, if you know, I'm also the spokesperson of Gambians Against Looted Asset, and for the past few months, I have been heavy on the call for accountability, transparency, respect for the rule of law, and to ensure that government is run on the principles of these terms I mentioned, but also beyond diluted asset, which is person and probably not part time, I would call it, but my professional job evolved around fact checking, that is information integrity, media and information literacy, and building capacities to fight against disinformation in the Gambia. So I go to the office in the morning to do the fact checking job, and then and a part time I call out for accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. But this is what I do, and also I run a mentorship program called Every Potential Matter, where we recruit young professionals and students and then build their capacity through hands-on trainings on soft skills beyond the classroom. So basically, these are the things that I do.
Comrade, that's exceptional, and then of course that's an inspirational journey that a lot of young people look into when it comes to the work that you do. A lot of Gambians have had respect for you when you came out with your fellow comrades to seek accountability with regards to former President Jambe's asset that has been looted, whereby, we have seen from the sales or inventories whereby they happens to sell some of Jambe's property is $900 here and whatnot. And then the investigation is going on. Take us through when those activism came into you, and what are some of the things that agitated you to take part in issues of accountability. Give us the synopsis about the history.
Yeah, so I think I got into civic activism post 2016 presidential elections. Before then, I was still involved. I keep telling people this. I think I remembered I was one of the members of the Outlaw. The Outlaw was a movement that emerged in the college when I was doing my ATC. And what we do with the Outlaw was to write about pertaining issues and concerning issues at the Gambia College, holding both the SU and the administrative accountable for almost 3 years or plus. So I think the spirit of activism emerged from there. I was doing this with brothers like Ile Singate, and also Asa. I don't know if you know him. Asa Jesus is very active on social media.
Hmm.
And, and so what we do was we will write about issues concerning students' welfare, concerning the growth of Gambia College, concerning issues that were not going right, and then we will publish them at the early hours of 3, 4. We'll print these documents and then we'll distribute them, post them all over, send letters and push them into office doors at night so that they walk up to those things. So that is where the whole idea of activism and call for accountability began with me. But it took shape in 2016 after Jammeh refused to go and the Gambia has decided to emerge. And I was among the few students of Dr. Cisse that followed him into that crusade, into ensuring that Jammeh have to leave. When I remember when he sent the email of impact lecturers, then we went to the force and convergent of Gambia has decided. So moving forward, what's really shaped my activism was listening to what has happened here for 22 years and the need for people to able to stand for their rights to ensure that no leader will be able to monopolize our state resources, no brutalize us in the exercise of their legitimate power. So I began my activism in that, and I remembered my first protest that I was highly involved and then co-coordinate was in 2018 when we have the supplementary appropriation bill. What happened was, I think I cannot remember the clause of the constitution, but the 1997 constitution have said after the Minister of Finance tabled the annual budget for a fiscal year, we'll follow up with a supplementary appropriation bill, and also probably others will call it the emergency fund, because let's say, for example, the disasters that will happen like fire breakouts and all of that are not actually budgeted in the budget. So the supplementary appropriation bill, however, the clause was clear that it cannot pass 1% of the total annual budget that have been passed by the minister. We remember when Amadou Sane was Minister of Finance and his appropriation bill supersede 1%. I think it was around 5%. I cannot remember very well, but we decided to say that no, that is not what the constitution said, and that is where the beginning of accountability comes. Because for them, they were saying that was normal during Jammeh's time, and then at that time, nobody can tell us it was normal in Jammeh's time. One of the reasons we removed Jammeh in 2016, so those excuses were unreasonable, unacceptable, and therefore we decided to storm and then occupy. We call it occupy the National Assembly, and then we occupied the National Assembly. And in the beginning, of course, the parliamentarians listened to us, even though at the middle of the night they went back and passed the bill. So from there, and I also began to understand that we cannot just be writing on social media, but politics of protest is a major fundamental tool for accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. If we want to get a country where we will not go back to the 22 years of how Jammeh Troll played with us, there's a need for fight for what is right and what is just and what is equal. And then this is what happened. So in 2019, I think it's where my activism journey was shaped. I remember that I led one of the biggest non-partisan protests in the history of this country. That was the protest against deportation. I don't know if you remember the 2,500 people that were arranged to be deported from Germany in 2019, in the late 2018 and 2019. And then, in collaboration with Gambian Refugee Association in Germany, I led a protest in the Gambia. And this protest was one of the biggest protests. And then, it was difficult to handle, but alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, the protest went well, and at least the government signed a memorandum to stop deportation at the time. So that was one of our success stories. That from there, I have joined a lot of protests, bring Jammeh to justice, which I don't lead personally, but I'm always in the forefront to ensure that we don't have a reputation. We never again have to be symbolized and have to be
Yes,
put on this.
I even wanted to come there. Looking at the transitional justice, you are somebody who have an extensive understanding about transitional governance, how nations emerge from dictatorship to democracy. And Gambia today, when you look at it, a lot of case studies can be done about Gambia's transition from dictatorship to democracy. As somebody who studied political science at the University of the Gambia, and by extension, you were able to do your master's in transitional governance, knowing all the things that had happened in the Gambia for 22 years, enforced disappearance, the murder cases, the alleged rape, and whatnot. These are some of the things that were the order of the day during Jambe's era, in the Gambia. When you make research about what had happened in the Gambia, what really informed your thoughts? Was one of the things that really compelled you to speak for the victim? Because we want to get into the the issues of the victim and reparation post TRRC. Tell us, what have
Yeah.
you read and what have you seen about Jembe's era and today?
So absolutely. I have just shifted a little bit to information integrity. Otherwise, I would have been a specialist in transitional justice. Even though I still have a background, I'm not an expert in it, but I have extensive experience in working within the transitional justice framework, both in Banjul but also in the international scene. So, actually, my first professional job, even though it was intensive, apart from teaching, was working around the transitional justice process. I remember I did an internship with the International Center for Transitional Justice, but also am founding member of our national voice. So, if you historically, if you look at transitional justice processes, is to rebuild a broken nation, is to transit from dictatorship or post-wars into a more democratic dispensation. And Gambia was not an exception to this. So in 2018, 2017, 2018, a lot of transitional justice mechanisms were built on. Like, let's say, for example, our TJ was a very unique one, remains a unique one actually in Africa, but also it's not unique to Africa. We've seen a lot of transitional justice process, including even right after. Am I audible? Am I audible? But I cannot hear you actually. But I'll continue. So that what happened. So when we had a transitional justice process, we have a truth commission, we have the truth reparation and reconciliation commission, right? And this is not unique. We know Sierra Leone have this, South Africa also had one, and and we also had the Jana Commission, which is very interesting for part of my job I do now with the Gambians Against Looted Asset. But also we had the Constitutional Review Commission. So simultaneously, we have the TJ, four components of the TJ, and we have the security sector reform. So what we wanted to do was to rebuild a broken nation, a nation where our resources were squandered, our resources were monopolized, and then were looted by one individual. We wanted to correct that, but also there were serious human rights violations, physical human rights violations, like you mentioned, forced disappearance, killing of innocent people, censorship on the media and civil society, a lot more. But all of this, like I keep telling people,
Extrajudicial killing as well.
yeah. So one thing I keep telling people, that dictatorship is always lawful. And then why I say dictatorship is lawful is dictators don't just jump and break the law. What they do first is to play with the law to suit their ego of what they want to do, right? And then that's what happens. Let's say, for example, the killing of Solo Sunday, and then the Jame regime will still justify that they did not take a permit, which is a lawful act, that we have the Public Order Act. So anybody that wants to protest must seek for a permit and must get a permit to protest. And many other issues. Remember, the 1997 Constitution was amended 52, 53 times to suit the interest of one individual. So we needed to revamp that system. We needed to change that system. We needed legal frameworks that protect human rights, that protect and then, safeguard our rights, our dignity, our freedom, but also give us a progressive platform for economic growth, for development. And then all of this did not happen, and we went to the transitional justice process. Great jobs have been done. The TRC did a very good job. The report was comprehensive, was inclusive, right? And then the government received this with open arms, and they had the white paper, and also after the white paper, they had the post TRC implementation plan, and on what they need to do to implement the white paper that they have accepted. And then thank God now we have the post TRC unit under the Ministry of Justice. They're doing a good job. They're doing a great job, even though more need to be done. And now we have seen the establishment of the reparations commission, which is very, very fundamental if you come to TJ, because TJ have components, and one of them is restoration, reparations, and criminal prosecutions, right? And then reconciliation. So whilst we're still on the voucher for our criminal prosecution, I think the special um, prosecutor's office have been established. There have been a division at our special division, prosecutor division at our high courts, and then we also have seen the acceptance of the hybrid court. As a result, we don't have the jurisdiction to be able to try certain cases, as far as crimes against humanity and genocide, which are equivalent to certain crimes that have been established here. But over and over, as we are speaking right now, the progress is looking beautiful. We have seen the reparation commission established, and we have seen then they have started reparating victims, which is fundamentally a need for us to be able to rebuild our society. We don't just need to build structures, but also human beings that were broken, human beings that were brutalized. Those victims need to need redress. They need to get back to their normal position. And then also we've seen they've started with the compensation, but there are different types of reparations. Of obviously, this include even collective reparations, where societies that have been collectively victimized will not have to need individual reparations, but also collective reparations. Let's say, for example, in Sintate, where a group of people were accused of being witchcrafts, and they drank all of those concussions, and which lead to health complications. In that situation, probably they need to build a healthcare as a symbol of reparations in Sintet to have those people recover in Jambu and in other places as well. And we also know that there are people who will have to seek for financial compensation directly, and with the reparations have started. So progressively, there's a lot that needs to happen. But Ali, what is important is, if we got into certain level of transitional justice process, what becomes more fundamental is non-recurrence, and then our symbol of the never again. And when we said non-repetition, non-recurrence mean non-repetition of what has happened in 22 years, and then the justification is always that the new government must have to learn from history. We have seen how security officers sat at State House and then told people how they receive commands on behalf of Jammeh, because most of them don't even speak to Jammeh. They're just telling us that we receive a command from Aliu, from Saibo, to go and assassinate, to go and brutalize, to go and kill, to go and disappear somebody, and they did it. And now that we needed to transit, we don't expect this government to crack down on people. We don't expect this government to be corrupt. We don't expect this government to, we expect this government to be a symbol of progress, of development, for the Gambian people, because this is why we went to the polls collectively in 2016 to remove Jan. So progressively, a lot have been happening, but also, and that is the thing, the victims are not just satisfied with payment. Victims in TA, transitional justice process, victim centered is very important. Victim centered approach. So victim will also have to determine, because there's a victim you will give $100 million as a reparation, as compensation for the loss of his or her loved one, but they will not accept that. For them, they want to see the perpetrators um,
being prosecuted.
prosecuted. And then that's where, that is what I keep saying, that in our TJ field, that even criminal prosecution is a form of reparations, right?
Exactly, because that is going to actually, yield their wound at some level. And then just to flip the script a bit, I mean, Cyber, when you look at TRC revolutions, or if you go through some episode in TRC, you will be broken. Women have lost their husband in a midnight, whereby they will just come and pick their husband from them. They wouldn't have chance to tell them goodbye. Soldiers were killed in November 11, and then up to date, their children didn't have hope anymore. In 2006, um, in 2006, soldiers were prosecuted, were being, prosecuted, killed, and buried. Nothing has been done about their case. If we talk about transitional justice, I want you to speak directly to the victim today, because they felt that they have lost hope in the system already. And then, coming for Tiwawol and Yunkol, Bemutapalayaldi, because they have been seated for, yeah, because they can follow Kuala in transitional justice, Ataranatan is on paper, because in reality, they have functioned something for 30 years now. Their husbands were killed, their brothers were killed, and better still, they are hopeless, they lose their compounds, their children didn't have quality education. Muna beki later kuma county too. I know you're not going to assure them, but the system that had been already put place, what would you tell to those victims as far as transitional justice is concerned?
Aliu, so coming mga fumanika counter drone,
Mm.
come as somebody that is extensively work in the transitional justice process, both in Banjul and also at work for one of the biggest um, TJ institutions, the Global Survivors Fund, that looks at a specific part of it, but generally you need to learn. So Munam Polymodi like Nyimman Sakuna is not my cup of tea, but transitional justice processes are not events. It's not an event, it's a process. And we have seen TJ processes that are Sanjitan Lulu in other countries, Mialanko, they couldn't get to the end. So sometimes what we need to do, to manage victim expectations, right? The victims need to understand that their plights as important, and then, their needs is an urgency, right? But also some of this process will book let's say, for example, if you look at the criminal prosecution. Now, let's say, for example, the SAM, that is a special um, accountability mechanism, have been put in place, right? And then part of them, like I mentioned, Young Yolkele, let's say, for example, there have been a division in the High Court that is able to prosecute based on the jurisdiction, the kiti bungulsi, kiti munkuntunum, right? But there are cases will be a miyanan kontella kiti bungul to we don't have the jurisdiction. Kiti bungul mo sembo soto kawo kiti sifal kuntu, right? And wala ka mol batandi, it's not just in the Gambia, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in elsewhere. And the same thing that happened if you come to criminal prosecution, because our jurisdiction doesn't have certain legal frameworks to be able to prosecute crimes against humanity and higher level crimes that are not within our jurisdiction, right? So, that victims need urgent help, and that is why interim reparations was supposed to be fast tracked in our system, so that there are victims that died because of health complications.
Exactly.
All the
Exactly.
must have done better to handle their cases, and then
Hmm.
also victims that are surviving, but they are truly suffering. Almost if that's why we have interim reparations, right? And I remember, let's say, for example, the organization I work for, the Global Survivors Fund, and that's what they do. They ensure that they work with states to offer interim reparations, to have the victims' need began to be established and have them heal, while states continue to establish the process of their post-TJ processes. This is not unique to the Gambia. Even though the interim reparations did not go well, there have been a lot of critiques about it. Even Victimolia criticized the civil society, transitional justice experts, and people who are working on the the space are older. But now there's progress been made. The government needs to fast track, they need to yanda ke bulo candidate, especially more mialanko wala jata kende be laring at the limelight. Yanda ka make sure come they offer those people. But I think they're also going to do that. I saw reparation commission ngajile be no so nyininga no so mbedending wala silent. So the establishment of the reparation commission is actually, I hope, for victims. The only thing government needs to do now is to compensate that for victims that don't just want money, but also want to see perpetrators to their victim would have been prosecuted. So they need to fast track the special accountability mechanism and ensure that criminal prosecutions are put in place. So, memang for the victim wala walang ko. Transitional justice bukan ano victim wala koma. Wala na niya jibe mbe femfen ning tegan transitional justice kono ka make sure ko victim wala kanwale na, and then victim centered akake walti actually. So sometimes it's difficult. But as somebody that is not just anybody that works in the TJ process, we also need to understand that this government is not my cup of tea. But TJs are very, very complicated, and it takes a lot of time. Sorry, it takes a long time before we can. We have seen Tunisia, even though it also have its dangers. Tunisia started their TJ process as early as 2012, up to 2016, up to now, and things are not very right there. Cote d'Ivoire is a good example of turning the flips around. That their transitional justice did not go as well, even though we saw those kind of signs in Banjul, such as a transitional president deciding to go for more terms and all of that. But over and over, TJ processes are not events. They are not kulios or manual videos that we go for 2 days and complete. They are long processes, and it takes a longer time before you can complete them. The student saga in Canada is still something that we talk about. In Chile, they still talk about post TJ processes. But over and over, the government also doesn't have to take excuses that okay, the process is always slow. There are processes that could be fast tracked. They must fast track that to protect the victims by not breaking them more, but healing them whilst the other processes continue.
Comrade, before we get into substantial matters of today's discussion, I think this is going to be very important. Yes, victims, they are really patient. Iba munya kambake na niyata jibe kulbita kanyami. But it is natural for them to feel bad. It is really natural for them to feel unhappy if they happen to see perpetrators who have inflicted pain on their family members and their loved ones are still, teaming around Senegambia, are still working with the government, are still driving around rovers, are still, walking freely on the street. How do you think these victims are going to feel this?
So absolutely, the victims are gonna feel bad. Like I said, there are no excuses of how the victim feel, and we respect every feeling of the victim. But also in having to redress past human rights violations and economic crimes, we cannot just violate other people's rights. The law has to take its course. Let's say, for example, the junglers that are working free. At this point, we don't have the mechanisms to have them trial. Unless most of them that are going through trial, let's say, for example, the Yankuba Ture case. Yankuba Ture was not tried um, because we wanted to fast track the TJ. And his refusal to speak now, he was accused of murder. And then that is an ordinary murder case. Let's say, for example, like any other murder case on the streets. Let's say, for example, the same thing is happening with Sam Manja because we don't have the jurisdiction to try them for certain cases. Let's say, for example, the extrajudicial killings that they do that are tantamount to probably war crimes or crimes against humanity. We don't have the jurisdiction to try them for that. So also, those perpetrators that have testified, accepted to testify, did not run, accepted to testify before the Truth Commission, cannot just be jumped into court. They now need to follow the white paper and the implementation plan and wait for the SAM and also the criminal, the special prosecutor's office, so that we try them within the confinement of the law. Because as much as they broke the law, we cannot repeat that same scenario of that just trying them because they broke the law. And that is where we always have to say that's why we don't deny victims plight and in their feeling, we need to manage their expectations. Victims' expectation management in TJ is very fundamental. You tell them that they have a right to reparations and then their perpetrators will be brought to justice. However, the process needs to be followed so that what happens to their loved ones unlawfully cannot happen to somebody else in our quest to redress their needs. So I think that is where the problem lies. I feel sorry for the victims and I keep standing for the victims. And sometimes, if you follow my social media, I get frustrated with the system and I call the system out that the victims need to be heard and their victimization need to be addressed. However, like I repeat, TJ is a complicated thing, especially the Gambia. We have a very unique, actually, we have a very unique TJ, even though we have learned from other TJs, but we have combined things that are very, very complicated, right? Not just like the Truth Commission in South Africa or in Sierra Leone or in Liberia. But over and over, the time is now for the government to fast track. They need to invest. And I know that the victim center will do a lot. But if you come to this SAM, that is the special accountability mechanism. This is election year. Government and then politicians right now, all they care about is how they get the votes in December 5th. And then they are being slow process. But the post TRC also is doing a great job. I must acknowledge that they are doing a great job. The progress made is commendable. And I just want
That
them to understand that victims that don't prefer the 100,000s and the 200,000 and the 1 million, they prefer Sana Sabali or Oya or any other perpetrators that have been named to be brought to justice also need to be fast tracked so that that compensates the money part of it. And also just to conclude that I think the government need to pay attention to children victims as a result of their fathers or their mothers being killed and all of that. Some of them have been dropped out of school and some of them have a messy life. And I think they need to pay attention because children welfare in reparations and in TJ has a whole special component, especially children born out of sexual and gender-based violence or born out of having their parents been killed before they even have 1 year or 2 years, that trauma continue to live with them. And beyond having to repay their school fees to go back to school or giving them certain that psychological support needed also to be given to them. So I think these are things that the civil society also need to focus on because every day, everywhere, victims continue to cry for this kind of thing. So, but over and over, I think our TJ needs to do more, but they are doing better as we speak, and then more needs to be done on that.
incredible, comrade. This is a very important thing to discuss about. That is why I have taken almost 30 minutes to have a discussion about this because we believe that the victims have been crying for far too long. And then it is time for us to give attention to it, for it is time for us to give attention to their pain, to know that Gambia had gone through a very, very terrible era, for 22 years of dictatorship. Moving forward into another discussion today, it has to do with accountability. Of recent, we have seen you and Edward Francis Small teaching for justice, human rights, and justice, or whatever. Has been at the center stage when it comes to fighting against um, uh, corruptions when it comes to fighting for accountability and issues related to that. So these are very important things that I wanted to brought your attention to. Um, Comrade, these are things me and Noko stand and I can start the back end. There is a special commission that has been established. I remember when I was with Gambia Participate, we have been advocating for the establishment of anti corruption commission, and these are some of the things that has we've really pushed harder to establish this, and thank God government was able to give hit to it, and then they've established it. But recently we have seen one of the nominated commission being framed or allegedly involved into um, uh, financial bribery or financial crime issues as we are speaking, and this has really taken the attention of everybody in the country. We have seen you have built a special interest in it by making sure that you also call for fair play and investigation about this whole matter. Take us through when you heard about this incident. At what position did you had this information, and then what was your thought the time you had this information or this information get to you?
Thank you very much, Aliu. So I I saw this I think a week ago before I spoke about it, if I'm right, and I saw Dr. Tikani calling out Almami James Manga, who is a senior police prosecutor and assistant commissioner of the Gambia Police Force, but most importantly, he is also one of the three commissioners of the only anti-corruption commission in the history of this country, a commission that we have cried for far too long, a commission that is very fundamental into our transitional justice process as a result of how corruption retard, delayed the progress of this country. If there is anything why Gambia is poor today, if there's any reason why people are dying in hospitals that are not supposed to die, if there's any reason why we are educated but our education is not valuable, if there's any reason why we die on the roads, is because corruption have eaten deeper into our society. And we have legal frameworks. Let's say, for example, the criminal code, the criminal code of the Gambia, has some sections that could try corruption. But we wanted a
Special commission.
full-fledged
Commission.
commission that looks into the matter of corruption, following the history and the report from the Jana Commission, and how people embezzled, looted, and stole from us for 22 years for plus. And probably these have been the norm in this country since independence. Even with the Jawara case, you can tell people that Jawara was a fan of human rights, but Jawara's government, the Jame government, and then the Barrow government, both have been characterized with high corruption. And then the difference now is when we are going to do a transition, like you said, when you were working for GP, one of the fundamental issues that need to fight corruption in this country is not cyber taking the streets to protest just like that. It's not Madi writing statements every day to call for accountability. It's to have an institutionalized body that hold government, individuals, public officials, and anybody within the framework of the act accountable. And this was a welcoming development when we had our anti-corruption commission established and recruitment made. And then first, we had a problem with the recruitment. An anti-corruption commission cannot just jump up and say 110 people have applied, but we have taken Aliu, Saibo, and Malmo. We wanted to know who applied, what is their qualifications, what is their track record if you come to integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness in this society. And they refused to do that. I remember once Watson Gambia, had to support an individual.
Our viewers are saying that we need to speak more of Mandinga, so maybe you can just mix them as time goes on.
Yes. So mbe mun foka walen kom corruption wala nakaro ning sunyaro mun kake mansakundala kol kono. Being na mansakunda boy ni nataka fale ko nyanta commission lolo wala bunda mumbe kisi ro kala mumbe dendi ne tumuro ke mumbe dendi corruption wala sunyaro ning tajirite ya ning nakaroti mumbe na mansakunda kono. Naraka ye coming soksita comme ya fanya mbribe do ko la Gambia participate mu bundalti fon ninke bundale mu yaron ko ye diamu jama ke do ko jama ke ni la kanyin bunda jaylo so brim bunda ni lota wala anti corruption commission di wala bunda mum be dending ka corruption o kele wala kan nakaro ni sunyaro ni tajirinte ya kele nyim banko ka naraka ye coming ye mol tombo bari follow ndella pol mo naraka kam duwalen ni ko ibe mo le tombo na mu yalan ko e nyanda ka mo tilindi ngolleti e nyanda ka tonya mo ledi foka pare e nyanda ka senera ni nara nakaro ning tajirente ya ning tunya rola fannala man sa kunda de wulla dron ay mo saba tombo alko mo le ko mo keme fulani fenne ya apply bale mo saba tombo alko mo le ko ni mo saba ndel ngole tombo gambino ngamu expect nu wolen ko e ba fula mo le ngani mo sabal tombo bari fana ba fula mo le ko kari ning kari le apply madi ya apply le lamin ya apply le binta ya apply le fatu ya apply le bari ntel nga ni la kaytol jibele nyela lodula jibe ni nara tonya phone tonya sabatin dola ngaje ko nyille qualification osoro wala nyilla kaytol senada nyilla la lonya senada pour kaning anti corruption commission sambano imo okay and then bring announcement okay mole la reservation also ngaje people raise issues about people that have been selected, not just Manga but even the other guy who have been in the was in internal audit before getting to this level but ngaje from molo de ko nyilla history senadare and mum mole de mialan ko yin doko kenon so we had both sides of the story but mo na raka ke kodi wala comme yen nyini ngaro munke lokun kilin koma o adan wala ngaje ko mo biye mumbe social media mu yalan ko ay safiro bondi safiro mbedending nakaro mu yalan ko na commissioner klindo mbe na anti corruption commissioner but also ni manke commissioner da man di anti corruption but assistant commissioner fana mu yalan ko len Gambia police force and Gambia police force is a state institution mu yalan ko e nyantaka loka bambang corruption ko la because ni mu muta corruption la iba sambala wolle ya pour kisikisiroke ando nyimu moldi mu yalan ko atele ka mol samba kiti bungo kadiamu mansa kunda to yala nana ni police la karola so manyana keke modi mu yalan ko hani nakaro do ara nyawnya atonya taka findi nakar ko kono so bringing keda moma ko diamu ale the only person ngamunje mba ko diamu ka wolen victim ni na friend Dr. Tikani but media house decided to pick it up man if I understand so James Manga is not an ordinary body in this country. Like, remember, not just because he's anti-corruption commissioner. No, internationally, James Manga is an international recognized corruption practitioner, as in anti-corruption practitioner, actually, right? By the UN, if I'm right. So that also have a serious reputation on the Gambia as a state. That one person that we are proud of is not just fighting corruption in Banjul, but in elsewhere, is also involved in corruption as minimum as people will claim. But mu kumare wolen haninta penolen I will tell no mari bulu ka ko kisi ka diama ko la kumare because sign the nying albe bundal do bunda mu yalan ko ntella life ni livelihood ka je ko nakaro e banyim banko kan tayrinte yay banyim banko kan sunyaro yi banyim banko kan ate mu molti mu dol ko mu yalan ko nyanda ko okay so ate dal manyina ka dum hani sobo famo manyina ka dum ani moti ni nara ko la mumbe dending nakaro la bundal but ngaje moma ko diam I decided to pick it up. It's not a special case to me. I'm treating it like any other corruption case. I don't know if you understand that involved a public official because James Manga is a public official. He's a public officer. So people that think that I have a special interest in, I will not call it a special interest. My interest is simple that a public official have been called out on allegations that needed to be clear. And when I released my statement, what I said is very clear. Ngamunfo was very clear. I did not say Manga yakele wala make. Ngamunfo walemko. It has been a week bring more things like a Manga Kodota mobile. And Manga needed to come out to clear himself that he refused to do in the beginning. Or he was adamant to do. I don't know. Munebekere no. Because Aliu, come, even Manga is Safiro Munke. Momundio Safiro understand. Yet Tilimunin Tonya ya Faham. And it Tonya Modi. Ibanako Manga e Munke and Insilo Manda. Ali ndemu police officer ndemu ide tirre de yanikata America yena bula problème ko no Gambia iko nyenko saybo mun na ntirima de nga saybo ko yen ko le ko nyako nga promotion nga keno sam mole bul bare keno nyim yara fa modol tam keno da keno mun ta aya wa fi ndela mako in the first place Manga nyanta ka munke wale kafo Famareko, just go through the right process. Go to the police street and then file a complaint in a particular police station or the headquarters. But it wasn't bad also that he did not handle the case individually. I found a case in Samba. I have report to the special investigative unit of the Gambia Police Force for them to pick up the case. Now that even if those people pick up the case, James Manga is in the middle of that case because he himself claimed that he continued to offer advice and guidance to the victim, which is okay as a friend, as a police officer, but also as a lawyer, as a police prosecutor. You know the legal, legal enforcement and everything there. So it was okay. What was not okay was for Manga to decide, even if it was going to be on a voluntary basis, which is acceptable by the Legal Practitioners Act, that if you are a lawyer but working with the state, a state officer, you can offer legal services for free. But even that free, already you should not get into any helping hand with the perpetrator because you are supposed to help now to bring the perpetrator to account. Let's say, for example, that Mr. Khan guy was found wanting or is still found wanting. Manga is going to be one of the people that will carry the police files to the court to prosecute him. He's a senior prosecutor of the Gambia Police Force. So now Manga is conflicted. The fact that not just voluntarily, but he decided to pick money from Mr. Khan in tone of saying that he was offering his qualified professional, legal professional guidance or whatsoever it calls. That doesn't matter. That is conflict of interest. You pick a case for somebody that is a victim. Now you took money from the perpetrator of that victim. What are you doing? Double standard.
Double standard, yeah.
That is double standard. That is unethical of a police officer, not just a constable and OC. We are talking about assistant commissioner of police. We are talking about a senior police prosecutor. We are talking about a lawyer. We are talking about a commissioner of the anti-corruption commission. So I don't know why people think that is a little case and they're trivializing the case that is a little case like is even me, Saibo, now I cannot just be involved in any kind of scandal and become a small case. Talk less of a state police officer, senior ranker, and anti-corruption. So what I can issue niti. So manga munke amanya nakake. Ita fono nyindo ko be mako lale ka luwa tamandi, luwa nyana ka tamandi mungang yekoro da ofna mulu. That itself is unacceptable. And that itself is uncalled for. And then
So,
I pick up that because I wanted accountability. Because I know the risks surrounding an anti-corruption commissioner being involved in even if at all he not take money. A non-financial controversy surrounding against any of those three individuals in the anti-corruption commission call for a serious concern. A serious one. Because corruption doesn't just have to be monetary. There's a lot more to corruption than just the money part of it, the financial part of it. Stepping your foot on cases, getting involved in cases that are supposed to proceed to levels for accountability are all means of corruption, Ali. So this is the reason why
so far, we haven't seen any report from the police, and again, we haven't seen any report from the government with regards to the alleged issue. What do you think need to be done?
well, um, I learned that after I released my first statement on the issue that the police have called James, the police command have called him, and then they engaged him, and he denied the allegations, and they asked him to release a statement. I don't know when that happened, but fortunately, like I keep telling people, I'm not gonna take credit. Probably that statement have been written before I talk about the issue. But what was important is for me that I call for, even though I feel like James la statement or silence on that matter. Now I didn't from all officer I must say, right? But the government, especially the National Assembly, the Ministry of Justice, and the Gambia Police Force need to come out and then take a stand on this case, because this had a lot to do with James as an individual, but it has a lot more to do with what the institutions involved. The Anti-Corruption Commission cannot be stained at this early stage. It cannot be compromised at this early stage. right? And then one person leaving is more important than a whole institution like an anti-corruption commission being questioned. And as a senior prosecutor of the
Mhm.
Gambia, I expect the IGP to take a stand, a clear stand. Aside calling him to question him and he deny allegations, they need to prompt an investigation into the matter where evidence. Because the other thing is, Ali, is that James Mang evident Bondi. He just came to he just came and write a statement like anybody can do. But this other camp have been bringing evidence. In fact, one of the evidence which is very eye catching
Mhm.
and very appealing,
Mhm.
that obviously I believe now that James had a hand in this allegation, is the fact that when one of the people that was fighting the case wrote something final thing to call out James and send it to James to tell James that I'm writing this on social media, James begged nothing to do it. We have all seen where he said, please don't do this, bro, or don't do this, bro. I know James Manga. I'm not saying he's arrogant.
Mhm.
But if James did not have his hands tied and dirty in this matter, James is not one person that will subdue to those beggings in somebody's DM. That is common sense. If I don't do something, I will not. I know myself. Even if I'm not
But
arrogant,
don't you think this guy trying to stain James' image by going down with him, because money is very tempting at some level. Don't you think, it was a mistake? And then, yeah, I am with the belief that anti-corruption commission should comprise of individual with high integrity. Even I do not want to question their education level, those commissioners, but I believe the government could have done better by making sure that they bring experts in the areas of those who have a better understanding about economics crimes, those who have a better understanding about economics, and then issues related to fighting against corruption, to station them to serve as the commissioners. When it comes to this issue, looking at the TRRC, it comprises of experts from different areas. It comprises of the Lamin Caesars of United Nations with 30 years experience. Esafal, who is somebody that has worked extremely well in international domain. He made names for himself. These were the very people that were at the forefront when it comes to TRRC. And the people I saw, and serving as the commissioners, to me, I believe they are good, but I think it could be better than that. I think we really need to have people that have experience, the exposure, and then the expertise when it comes to the subject matter. Because corruption, these are very, very powerful things. You're gonna be dealing with billionaires. You're gonna be dealing with millionaires who got money. They can buy your consent at some level. What sort of recommendation would you give it to the National Assembly if they are to scrutinize, appointment of such or nomination of such next time?
all right, thank you very much, Ali. I totally agree with you that I'm not questioning the qualification of the anti-corruption commissioners, but and then that is why it was fundamental for public scrutiny on the applications and the recruitment of commissioners. We don't know who applied, so for us, we are meant to believe that these three people are the most qualified Gambians to run this. So what can we do about that? There's a lot more that we cannot do. For me, I would have expected the National Assembly, for example, if the Ministry of Justice refused to hand over the entire application to the public, I would have expected the National Assembly to establish a special committee that would have vet these three people and compare their applications to the rest of the applicants and then make sure that out of character, integrity, experience, right, and academic qualifications, without an iota of doubt that these people are able to run the commission. Because, come on, I think the ministry released over 100 plus people that apply. I cannot know the numbers, right? But out of that, why these three people? What is their qualifications? Like you said, what is their level of understanding if you come to financial crimes? We understand that we need a lawyer. We understand we need A, we need B. But that would have been better because the beginning of the
I don't I
anti-corruption.
don't even I don't even think you only need lawyers, serving as the commission. You can have one lawyer there. You can have advisors serving as a lawyers or lawyers serving as an advisors. But this has to do with economics crimes. Whenever you
Yes,
hear the word
I'm trying to say
corruption.
the commission will have a secretariat,
Mhm.
and this secretariat will obviously have um, um, a legal affairs union. In fact, I think they have amended the section of the Anti-Corruption Commission, because the initial bill, in fact, gave power for the commission to be able to prosecute. So I think they've removed that part. If not so, then the commissioners will be able to have the power to prosecute. Therefore, there will be a legal point. But now we need high class experience, probably people with 40, 50, 60 years of experience in the international, both national and international scene, and have a clear state. Because in the first place, I am not saying that this was supposed to be. James is not clean. We have seen an allegation of a woman and a baby Isa being sent to a cell by James. That
Exactly.
conversation going on, even though the government decided to deliberately ignore that, but that cannot be ignored. Isa's mother was not a mad woman and was not insane at the time that she knew that it was James Manga that threw her and her 1 year daughter, I think, or less, into a cell.
And assault her too, because he said she was being
And it
insulted.
wasn't her mother. So now, how do we find, even though it's an allegation, it remains an allegation, and that's the difference between us and other systems, Ali.
Mhm.
Even if it remains a mere allegation, James would have not qualified to be at the Anti-Corruption Commission. Come on. Why would I, out of everybody in the police, it's just say today, for me, if I call a police officer's name and accuse the person of brutalizing me during arrest, and people think I am mad not to know who brutalized me, who insulted my mother, and memory is placed on how much I'm hurt. People that hurt you more are tend to be people you never forget in your life. Imagine you expect Isa's mother to forget that, a man that pushed her and her 1 year or lesser daughter into the cells.
Three
How can
months,
that
less
woman
than three
forget?
months. Yeah, less
But
than
also,
3 months.
how can a poor, helpless woman accuse just James like that out of everybody in the police force?
But she
So
perfectly described.
no, no. I think that's the truth. The truth is, our National Assembly itself are not serious if you come to some of these issues. You see, Ali, muna na banko tinya ka walang political. Everything is politicized in that country. Everything there, moliam ni mol diam de tunya for it, political. Nobody have an interest in James Manga beyond being a public servant and need to be held accountable.
Mhm.
And then the people I saw calling that do not bring your fellow young person down, do not do this. James is a man of integrity and all of this. Look, myself as an anti-corruption activist and a vocal person of accountability, what I can do tomorrow nobody knows. There's a human being. I know if you get what I mean. So as long as the system remains that way, that even if people say the truth, you are name tagged and it's politicized. And I saw the MPP people making this an MPP issue, defending James, and that also shows you how unserious our ruling government, our ruling party, and government is. This has nothing to do with politics. This is straightforward thingy that an anti-corruption commissioner is accused in a serious allegations and needed to clear the air and it needed to be held accountable and it needed to tell people that I did it or I did not. Because mune problem di aliu ndela banko ku krine bad namata taga wolen tonya fo balia mon man lave ka tonya fo and tonya fo is very selective in that country. Ite aliu ite be with all of the history we see, you be calling out people why need cyber involved that deep down iba fala mole na broda mess up tale, but out there you'll be there defending cyber. That is hypocrisy. Woman ki tonya ti wote ni banko sambala because momo ni biye ye kanun te wala soto ye kero wala soto ye badi wala soto ni mo woni ko tonya fobe dendin ni badi wala biye wala badi mutije wala nyim banko tita, unless people are able to speak the truth regardless of who is involved in crimes and issues of national concern, we have a serious problem as a country.
So I want to drag your attention on the issues of your court case that is going on right now. I know the matter is before the court, and then we were not going to get into the substantial matters. And what we do know, the only crime that you have committed is speaking for justice, making sure that accountability stands, and then corruptions are ended in our country. You guys were being arrested, taken to court. How was the feeling the first time you stepped your feet in court?
Well, so the feeling, I don't know. I don't know how I felt. I know when I faced the judge and the charges were read, and the charges were because I stood to defend our democracy, I stood by the rule of law, I stood to defend the constitution that governs us all. I was proud. I was truly proud that I did not go to that court because I stole somebody's money. I did not go to that court because I killed somebody. I did not go to that court because I committed any crime. The only crime I committed was speaking truth to power and holding government accountable, which I will do the next second I left that court. So I was proud that that could happen. But also I felt disappointed. Disappointed in the fact that we fought this collectively to ensure that nobody is unlawfully arrested, brutalized, charged, and prosecuted for exercising their fundamental human rights. So that was a disappointment. It was a disappointment that I stood out in 2016 and campaigned for the coalition, and I shouted the coalition, and I told people that okay, Jammeh have to leave. We need Barrow because Barrow campaigned on the principles of promoting freedoms, defending human rights, and the rule of law. And 7 years, 8 years down the line, that we have to go to court for simply protesting and then be hiding behind the Public Order Act, which is a colonial establishment to suppress people in those days that are going against colonialism, only remind us that in under our own roof and under our own leadership that we went to the ballot box to vote for, there's still a tendency of colonization, but this time now colonized by our own Gambians who were supposed to protect us. Because that's it, if you use a colonial law against me, you are colonizing me, you are denying me my freedom. And that's what colonization looks like in those days, to seize freedom, to ensure that people don't have the right to speak up, to make sure that people don't have the fundamental right to basic necessities, both economic and political, civil rights in this country. So it was a disappointment to see myself in court, but I continue to go to court. I continue to face court cases since in February with my since in September with my colleagues, and we are stronger today than ever, Ali. We don't regret storming and then doing a press conference at the audit office in Bakau, and then tomorrow if there is another where there is a human rights violation, where there is a crackdown on our constitution and the rule of law, we'll be proud to take this street and we'll be proud to do it over and over again.
Comrade, I do not want us to get into the politics, but I want us to end this conversation with the issues of our current issues, or the issues of contemporary realities in our country right now. Of recent, the survey has been released in the Gambia, and then it comes with a lot of noises, commotions, and whatnot. Opposition, there are indicators that with United Front Opposition Coalition, they will be able to defeat President Barrow. And these indicators are there for everybody to read. But the major opposition party, United Democratic Party, has drawn a red line with the notion that the issues of incumbent or primaries is non-negotiable. What you saw, or since you saw this message, or since you've heard such statement from the party leader of United Democratic Party, what was your take?
Well, I think you read my take. I think you read, but first I just want to speak to the data first. That you know, data is scientific and it's not common sense. And if data speaks, it speaks through the people that have the voters cards and that have the marble come December 5th. And first, I don't know how people take it, but I think the data from Sepras, those in favor the ruling party, nor the opposition, it has given the both of them a room for serious rethinking, right? And also, for me, it gives more advantage to the opposition than it gives to the ruling party. So the ruling party, of course, if as somebody that have been in the field for the past 10 years, at least every year I do a survey, right? If you so the survey question line is, let's say for example the survey that people went on, the opposition went on on separate, especially UDP, on the question is who likely will you vote for, and who likely do you think will win? Okay, a lot of people likely think Barrow will win, probably because Barrow is currently a state house, and then they understand Barrow have the state resources. But there is a question before that, that if elections have to be held today or tomorrow, who are you going to vote for? People say they're not going to vote for President Barrow. And then the question is, if President Barrow contests against any other post candidate, the candidate is going to win. Now, the opposition were supposed to sit down earlier and then re-evaluate and recalculate that one, Gambians think Barrow will likely win, but they are not ready for vote for Barrow. Where is the difference in these two questionnaires? Why do people think they will not vote for Barrow? People did not want to vote for Barrow, but they think Barrow will win. Now you draw a line. But also, what I meant to say is that it has more advantage for the opposition. Is that the perception have said that for me it has given a manifesto, a new bad manifesto for the to the opposition. The fact that people think that they lose trust in Barrow, that's a good campaign messaging. The fact that they feel that corruption is still rampant, that's a good campaign messaging. The fact that they believe that Barrow underperformed than any other president, those are the position and advantages that the opposition have to prepare against the December 5th elections. Not to look at just one part of it, of an insignificant question. For me, I would say that, okay, Ali, who do you likely think will win? Look, and that's the honest truth. As we speak now, all of us, either we were part of the survey or not, I keep telling people, even yesterday I was telling somebody that I believe that if the opposition did not do the needful, Barrow is likely to win the December 6th, December 5th elections. That doesn't,
I told Tuba about this. I said it should be 90% because even
you know,
me, that's my position.
85 to 90%. That doesn't mean I'm going to vote for President Barrow, but that's the honest conversation of seeing what is happening, right? Why the opposition continue to fight within each other and then all of that? Like today, the president is very strategic in his political ambitions. Let's say, for example, today, yesterday, the president is going around electrifying villages that have never seen electricity in their life. You think that it just come as a coincidence or as a tool for development? It's a tool for politics. Those villages today have cleaned their voters' cards and waiting for the December 5th to vote for President Barrow, because those people were born, raised in Kandiol and how do you call it, very Lampol, that you go and look for casino and light. And today they will just enter their bedrooms and their bathrooms and in their parlors and just have their sockets on, and then it's lighting up. And you think those people are going to abandon President Barrow for a fragmented, unserious opposition? That is not going to happen.
And Doc Sabo, I don't want to quote you here. I told somebody this yesterday that Gambia is not in that stage whereby it's going to compel certain individual to take certain sacrifice, in uprooting the president. Because, like you said, people live. Gambians do not actually vote based on issues politics. They vote based on infrastructural development, and the president is doing that.
Well, so that's the thing. So politics of policy is something that is not embedded in us. But also don't blame us. 80% to 85% of our voters are not literate. They're not formally educated to be able to read and understand and interpret those policies, even if the opposition go there and then tell them those policies is still the same. So the incumbency in Banjo or in the Gambia always speak the mind of the people, right? I just came from the provinces today. I was in Kerwan Sambasira, where now all the compounds already have their meters. It's only for President Barrow to get to CRR, and then now it is connected. And right now they're excited. For me, I thought that they already electrified the homes. They did not electrify the homes. It was only street lights. You saw how they were sending those pictures to Watson Gambia, thanking President Barrow. They may want to thank President Barrow as well at the ballot box, which is the honest truth. Which is, you don't have to like the government or whatsoever to be able to speak that. And that's where the opposition comes. Now that we get into equality, now that the research is telling you that you 1%, whether 1%, 5%, 30% opposition, look, no opposition have ever won elections in this country through the ballot box aside from the coalition in 2016. I'm talking about since Jawara, right? And the wake-up call is, first we need to acknowledge, Ali, that the UDP is the biggest opposition party in this country. They have the influence, they have the numbers, they have the structure, the most organized political party. And in fact, I keep telling this to people that the UDP, if I'm going to study political parties in Africa, UDP is going to be a very good case study if you come to resistance and persistence and structure and organization. Absolutely. But what UDP needs to understand that they got the numbers, they got the structures, but the structures and the numbers have never given them the win that they have been looking for since 1996. Therefore, it's good to re to re to reinvent the will. And when we say to reinvent the will, is to not to be so much egoistic about their position. You see, it's ego if I tell somebody that look, I am okay, let's say tomorrow a fact-checking organization is established in this country. By virtue of recognition and connection and donor funding, probably I'll be the biggest fact-checking organization as the force that have established. But if I tell the smaller ones that look, if we are going to have a project, the project money and everything will be run by me. I'll decide how your staffs are paid. I'll decide what this happened, and this is final. There's no negotiation. That is not partnership. That is employment. So if we believe that globally, yeah, we have seen the coalition in Finland, we have seen the coalition in elsewhere that okay, by virtue of being the major political party, you will come out of the room leading the coalition like it happens in 2016. But those parties came together with the condition of the bigger party saying, look, there is no negotiation for the flag bearership. I am going to be the flag bearer. And they still follow you to the room. Nobody will follow you to the room with that egoistic position. That's the honest truth. That's the serious truth. So
Yes.
also,
So
also
if you
whilst,
okay, go ahead.
whilst UDP have that position, we must also speak truth to the rest of the opposition that they must acknowledge and respect that UDP is the biggest political party, opposition party, right? And they are not just little that a 1%, 2%, or 10% political party can condition them on what to do and what not to do. What all of these parties need to do now is to throw their egos away and come together and sit on the table. Coalition conditions to the table are not established on flag bearership and leadership. It starts with a concrete strategy. If you read the National Democratic Institute, they have released this strategic report, I think 2020, I'm not sure what the date, on coalition building. If you look at the priority of an advantage is for people to come together first and build a strategy. Alu, that strategy will inform the structure of the coalition, and therefore the leadership, because the leadership doesn't just have to be because somebody needs to be there. The leadership have to be somebody that has both the academic and the political experience to
and and
run.
and electability too. Gambians do not want to hear this word, but these are the realities. Even today in Minnesota, primaries, I mean democratic primaries that is going on. The debate is revolving around electability at some level.
So so that's the thing. So I don't know whether I've been seeing that term. How do they what do they use an winnable candidate? Is it winnable candidate, an electable
Yes,
candidate or
yes.
candidate?
And then to me, Davo is the most electable opposition because I mean the records
No,
have
no,
seen
no,
exactly,
no, absolutely, absolutely. Going by numbers,
exactly,
going by anything to close the gap between opposition and then there is no better winnable candidate than Dabo. By
exactly,
numbers. I don't know. I don't know. Like I keep joking that I think we the political scientists need to leave our comfort zone and then understand the terminology a winnable candidate. But I think as we speak, we go by numbers. If there's a second most winnable candidate apart from Barrow winning, is Dabo winning. And this also remember the survey spoke to this when I think when Doctor was on Kerefadu, that is Doctor from Cyprus, said that when they asked the respondents that you're gonna vote against Barrow with any other candidate that he said yes. And when they asked in terms of parties, but obviously if you say UDP, it's gonna be Dabo. Said
exactly,
that they are gonna vote for UDP, meaning that alternative candidate that will defeat Barrow, as stated in the statistics, is UDP. That is Dabo. And then these are the people that vote. Remember, most of the time, let's say for example, I've been into surveys a lot. We don't just go randomly asking people that don't have voters cards. We ask people that have voters card, and we ask people in the remotest parts, women, men, and young people about this. So those people's perception cannot be downplayed because it doesn't favor you. But over and over, Dabo also being a winnable candidate, or any other person being a winnable candidate, I think the opposition need to draw a line. a line that there is a need for change, and change will not come at an individual's egos put together. We must put our egos aside, and we must collectively believe that we need to change again, and this change is urgent. This change is important, and this is a change that our life and livelihoods after 2026 rely on. And then we should not joke with it, Alu, and we should not play around with Alu. And egos will not take us to the ballot box, and egos will not give us victory. A strategy
Yeah,
can
yeah, and then I think these are
that
very important.
will give us the victory that we survive. We win.
Yeah, and I think these are very important things that we need to discuss about it. I believe UDP should be more strategic in approaching oppositions parties because they cannot do it alone.
So
Definitely feel also.
so that is my point. And I think I fought with them for the past 1 week when I said that Davos' rigid position is unwise. But that is the thing. You see what?
Yeah,
UDP is not just a mere political party in this country. Let us be honest.
exactly,
UDP is historic in our political trajectory. UDP, either people like us that don't even belong to the party, we must give it to them that they have that resistance, they have that persistence, they have that intellectual pedigree,
exactly.
they
Hmm.
have that experience. So they need to use that wisely to bring the opposition together, not egoistic, not to be egocentric on how they bring the opposition together. No, the opposition should be if UDP fail to build a coalition, then they have failed Gambians one more time. Even Gambians that belong to UDP, you have conversations with them, they let them, man, buguma UDP de. Man, support my UDP, why they can more negative. UDP is the biggest political party opposition party in this country. Nobody can take that from them.
It
Tell
is
me one
without
party
question.
organized. Any party that is established in this country will use the UDP structure model in establishing. Either they say directly or not. That's what I feel.
Yeah,
Because they are organized. Look, if UDP takes tours, you think that it's a ruling party or government that is going to do tour.
I think some of them become emotional when they have heard some of their opponents speaking against them. They tend to I don't think that is really wise of
Look,
them though.
look,
But
look. That's what I'm that's what I'm gonna talk about.
mhm.
If one percent party is
Trying
emotional and then
to anger you. Mhm.
anger you, you have 30%. You need 15% to 20% to win elections.
Exactly.
Ignore for you what is needed now that we need a change of government that you have been fighting for from 1996 to date. I am analyzing UDP's political style today. I was 2 years when UDP came into power or into existence and in fact, how did UDP came into power? UDP was a cocktail of PPP and then the
NP.
NPP at the time. That itself shows you that UDP came to form a united force against the system, and UDP became part of the force that changed the system after 22 years.
Yeah,
Put place a system that has failed us. If they want to be serious, they can change that system as well. They need to use their strategies, their intelligence, and the people within their party. They've got the human resources.
exactly.
They've got the intellectual pedigree. They've got the structures. All what they need to do is to understand that egos doesn't play politics, strategy,
Yeah.
persuasion,
Mhm.
and intelligence play politics.
Yeah, I think they should be more technical when it comes to approaching the minorities and of course approaching other Gambians around the country. You will be angered by minorities who cannot even make difference. But they can come for a journal. I didn't need the new
No, I have
money.
no problem. I have no problem with that. No, I have no more.
They can
They
come
have.
for the.
So you cannot blame them sometimes. You see, Ali, it's the same with you. If you persistently build a certain level and then you think people are undermining you, even though I don't see the opposition taking a position that so and then that's it for me. There are in fact oppositions that UDP is wasting their time on. They're not even a registered political party. If there's a
Yeah,
coalition, those people will not even have a say in the table because they're not even registered.
exactly. UMC
So
Rockwell get
I don't
access.
know why exactly. And I keep telling them this. The few of them I took, I keep telling them this. Why are you wasting your time on certain political parties and movements that don't even registered yet? So if they're if I'm a party leader, I will only discuss coalition with parties that are registered. We can go into table and then they can present. We don't even know whether the rest of the political parties that are all talking about coalitions, Dabo gonna lead us, Dabo gonna win, UDP gonna lead us. Look, they're not even registered yet, bro.
Mhm.
Why would I waste my time on? Let's say, for example, I'm going to play football. Jamisa versus Brikama or Bansan,
Mhm.
right? And all of a sudden, Jara Soma started to support and then to downplay my captain. But I know that Jara Soma is not even qualified. They were eliminated in the fourth round. So how
Mhm.
do I? Oh, they are not even registered. How do I waste my time on that? And I think that's another thing that political parties need to look into. That the conversation cannot be distracted. Everybody have a say. Even those who are not registered have a say. As far as they may get registered before we get to the table, but before then, focus on the greater good. Focus on the greater good. Focus on what is more fundamental for now. That is you forming a coalition and a coalition with registered political parties. So why will you be wasting your time on debating about unnecessary stuff and then egos, competition, and all of that, Ali? I think that is it for me.
Yeah, I think they would strategize and then trying to be very technical in approaching the minor opposition parties in making sure that they convince them to come and join them at some level. Like you said, human beings. So at some point they react based on emotions, and then if you're trying to downplay them, they might at the receiving end they are the receiving end. They might receive it in a very bad way, and as a result, it would make them uncomfortable to go in bed with you at some level. But I believe UDP will strategize and make sure that they try to approach these other opposition parties and form a coalition, to contest against Barrow. For me, I think Barrow Barrow is pushing the comrade. Abdullah Silla would not. Abdullah Sisa would not be happy with this. Um, Comrade, what will be your last message? Mm.
Huh?
Your last message. We are almost done.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Ali, for this conversation. I hope I have done justice to your questions. But my final message is that Gambia is at a crossroad. A lot of things are happening in this country recently, and I last week I don't expect the person to be mad. It's a senior brother, and we were talking, and he asked me how am I coping with all of this thing that is happening, and I told him I'm exhausted and I think I want to leave this country. And then that did not sit down with him, and he thought I was mad that I cannot leave. But Ali, I think people will get fatigued towards the December 5th elections. People are going to get exhausted and people are going to get tired. And for the government, there is a lot more to happen in this year. And then let us not expect a lot from government apart from politics, apart from amassing votes. And they will do this through development plans. Let's say, for example, President Barrow is towing and enlightening the Gambia. Everybody wants light. Everybody wants to have NAWEC now that you don't have to use solars to go and charge, or you don't have to go to village to charge. Commendable. I don't know what other people think, but regardless of whether it is used for politics or for development, what is needed is people need to have electricity, and people are having electricity, right? Um, the young people in this country need to understand that we form 60%, and these are not just numbers that we brag about when we go to conferences and when we speak to people. I often will hear young people every panel, everywhere, and they will tell people that we form 60% of the population of this country. But how impactful is that 60% of the population? What are we doing that we are the majority? That if we want to change a government, we're going to change the government. If we want to change the system, we're going to change the system. If we want to navigate through any difficulty, we'll navigate through. Because at the end of the day, whatever we do, my mom in Bansang doesn't understand what it takes to vote for her. She needs to vote for the incumbent because it's what is existing. My grandmother in Yamena is the same. So it's the young people, regardless of our political affiliation, regardless of our differences, we must come together to salvage this country. We must come together to ensure that this country is built on the principles of accountability, the rule of law, and transparency. And that politics aside, we can disagree to agree, but what is more fundamental that Gambia is bigger than any political party. Gambia is bigger than any individual, and Gambia's development progress must be the center stage for anybody, regardless of our affiliation and all of that. So, to the oppositions, We are 9 months, 8 months or lesser into the December 5th elections. How you comport yourself and how you organize yourself and how you approach this election is fundamental. Fragmented opposition will never get to the polls and then win elections. No opposition have single-handedly win elections in this country. And then as a political scientist, for the best model as we speak today is coalition, because for over 22 or for over 50 years plus, it was only through a coalition we change a government through the ballot box in this country. So strategically and politically, until one party is able to do it, which can be tested in 2026, if we need urgent change, we need a coalition to change. So thank you very much, Aliu, for having me. I hope it was a truthful conversation. Until we come your way again, thank you so much, Aliu, and keep it up. This is a great, great, great platform, and I look forward to returning back here some time ago, some time to come again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Saibo Kamara. I am deeply glad to have you again. You know, we've been together for quite a long time. We've said a lot of things, even though at some level we have disagreement on certain issues as to how we should govern our nation. And of course, we will bring you. We will definitely bring you. We are getting into a very interesting era in our political discourse. Even though today our discussion, 90% of it was centered on your work, civic advocacy, and of course accountability and the future of our nation, the Gambia. It is the country that we all share, and I believe and hope that we're going to have a discussion around our country when you're available. And then I'm going to bring you, every month wants to have a discussion around our country, and it's
Yeah,
just the
I was I was looking forward to having my brother here. I like his
dog.
Possibly. I wish Malmo was here to have this conversation, but I look forward to this program where I will have Malmo. We have a lot of things in common. We agree on a lot of things, even though we also disagree. But Malmo is one person that is straightforward. So I don't know why he's not here. I don't know that bin Moko
He,
hide.
he's
Probably
following. He's really following, but I think Madam is the one who is actually taking care of him right
Khadija,
now.
Khadija will always be. He will always steal Khadija's time to come here, and Khadija will be behind and then distracting. So probably he's giving this Sunday to Khadija. But thank you very much, Ali, one more time, and I look forward to this again and again.
Deeply appreciate your comment. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks.